Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto destroys his family Yugioh Part Q Naruto x Yugioh. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Poki, I told you, already. I don't care if the newbies are coming. I'm still wallowing over my demotion, a teenage blonde said to the small yellow dragon that growled and tugged on his sleeve. The teen had the evidence of adolescence in his broadening frame, his face would square out with time, although the 3 whisker-like birthmarks that were on either cheek would still be as prominent as they are now. He wore an unzipped white jacket with a red collar and trimming, open to reveal the fitted navy shirt underneath, which was tucked into his dark jeans. His feet were covered by red shoes that were issued by the academy. The teenager's name was Naruto Uzumaki, second-year student of Duel Academy. He was just demoted from the raw yellow dorm to the slifer red shack during the last evaluation duel. It would be some time before he got over it. A recuperation that was rushed by the spectral dragon that was next to him. The little Drake was a bit of a chub ball with tiny wings and limbs, but it was special. It was Naruto's dual spirit, Poki Draco, which only started to appear around the second half of his first year. They might not have been together long, but he quickly discovered that while Poki was loyal to a fault, the spirit was also very accident-prone and the fresh bandages on its head were not for show in the artwork. Still, he was an adorable chub, at least according to some of the girls on the island, but that was in reference to the card. Naruto had yet to meet someone else that could see Poki Draco. Crew, I don't care. I've got to think about how I'm getting back into Raw. I'm not letting the last term dictate this one. Naruto grumbled and turned onto his side. The bastard should have told me that a loss would have meant a demotion. I swear he kept it to himself for laughs. Crew, Poki Draco rolled its eyes. Don't you roll your eyes at me. Naruto pointed at his dual spirit with narrowed eyes. He laid back down and glared up at the cloud-filled sky. And then there's the teachers. I swear, other than Miss Fontaine, they're all out to get me. Especially Mrs. Crawler. You mean, Professor Crowler? A voice asked from nearby. Don't correct me, Poki, I know what I called Crawl. The blonde paused and got up to look over the edge of the roof. Hey, Sakura. Decided to wear the skirt with pride I see. Nice. With shoulder-length pink hair and emerald eyes, Sakura Haruno stared up at him with her hands on her hips. She wore the female obelisk blue attire consisting of a white top with blue trimming, a blue miniskirt, something she had fought administration over in the last year, and royal blue boots. Naruto, you dummy. Get down from there. You know this rickety toolshed isn't stable. I'm not patching you back up if you get hurt, she said. She pointed a finger at him. And don't bring up the skirt, or I'll kick your. I know the dorm isn't stable. That's why I'm wallowing up here. Stop being such a diva, that's Sasuke's job. Do not bring up he who shan't be named. Naruto hissed. A low growl made him look at his dual spirit and nod. That's a good point, Poki. Backstab McGee does sound better. Just get down from there or I won't sneak you your coveted ramen from the dorm later. You know the welcoming feast has the best food you'll get all year here, Sakura said, her arms folded across her chest. Naruto bit the inside of his cheek. Damn, that was a strong threat. However, there would be consequences if the Uzumaki didn't get his ramen. There's a reason why Crowler always looked like he was scowling whenever the cheap food was brought up, after all. Fine, Naruto said as he threw his hands in the air. He crossed his arms and pouted. I want it to be known that I'm attending this under protest. I'll let the headmaster know, Sakura said. Now hurry, the freshmen are already gathering in the auditorium. The blonde grinned at her and took a few steps back, prepared to make a running leap off of the roof. Use the ladder, you dunderhead. I'm not getting any help if you break your leg. Naruto cringed at her tone. That was the, don't mess with me, I'm an angry woman and I will kick your tone. Last time he defied that tone, she managed to knock out the last of his baby teeth. Going those 2 months with large gaps in his grin didn't do him any favors. Fine, I'll use the ladder, Naruto said. He pouted as he made his way over to the ladder. Spoilsport. Naruto had his hands deep in his pockets and his shoulders hunched as he walked down the hall with Sakura at his side. He hated orientation day the first time around. Why did he have to go to it again? Stop scowling, Naruto. Could you at least try and look pleasant for the new kids? Sakura asked. She smacked his arm when he put on a forced cheeky smile. Knock it off. You're walking around like a punk when you're supposed to make a good impression on the new students. Who are you? My sister. Naruto rubbed his arm with a grimace. That was going to bruise for sure. Sakura took up boxing in her spare time to keep in shape. Each punch she threw showed just how frightening that concept was. Shizune did ask me to look out for you, Sakura said. She laughed when he groaned. Girls, you're all against me, I swear. Naruto grumbled. His stride came to an abrupt halt when Sakura grabbed his arm with her absurd strength. Hey, Sasuke. Sakura called down the adjacent hallway at the boy. Naruto groaned when he followed her gaze and spotted his best friend / current mortal nemesis. With spiky jet black hair that was pushed back, which only made it look like a duck's rear end if you asked Naruto, and a pair of coal black eyes, Sasuke Uchiha stood out in the crowd of blue uniforms he stood with. He was wearing a long-tailed white jacket with blue trimming, the male version of the obelisk uniform. Trailing, stealthily, about 20 or so feet behind him was a gaggle of girls with indiscriminate features. Beside the boy was a taller teen with dark teal hair, and near him were a group of other obelisk boys. Ah, don't bother, Sakura. He's with Zane, Naruto said. He nodded at the other. And the Zane moons? Moons? Sakura asked as she looked back at Naruto. You know, he said with a nod to the other obelisk boys. The posers who orbit him to look tough. Oh, Sakura nodded, as if a light bulb turned on. She cupped her chin in wonder. Huh, you know, that's scarily accurate about a lot of groups I see on the island. Exactly. Naruto beamed when she used his term. He tended to think them up when he got bored in class. An event that happened very often. Still, let's go say hi. Zane's your friend, too. No, he was Atticus' friend. Zane is bland, like Sasuke. And you two are best friends. Quote. This is not how guys do things, Sakura, there are checks and balances. We have bro codes. He didn't even realize that Sakura had dragged him right next to Sasuke during their back and forth, until the guy said something to him with a quirked brow. Time for another guy friendship talk, again, Naruto. Sasuke asked, a small smirk on his face. She just doesn't get it. Naruto sighed when he saw Sakura had blindsided Zane into a conversation about any potential talent he observed. He scowled at Sasuke, who rolled his eyes. Are you still wallowing? Sasuke asked. Naruto recoiled from him and placed his hands over his chest. The mark you left on me is deep. Deep within my soul. Could you not say that when the fangirls are nearby? The Uchiha hissed, flustered by Naruto's dramatics. The blonde caught onto this little tidbit and pounced like a lioness would an antelope. Why, are you worried about any potential shipping fodder? Naruto asked. He grinned widely, placed his fists on his hips, and thrust out his chest. I have absolute confidence in my masculinity. Don't you? That isn't helping, you moron. Sasuke punched Naruto in the head. He recoiled from his strike and cradled his throbbing hand. Gah, I forgot, your head's harder than a rock. Damn straight. Naruto laughed. He rapped himself on the head with his knuckles. Nothing can crack this bad boy. It protects my most important organ. You mean your second stomach? Sasuke asked. Nope. It protects my strategic brain. That's a good one. Shut up. Hey, Slifer slacker. Get lost. Can't you see you're bothering Sasuke? One of the Zane moons suddenly interjected. Naruto regarded him with nothing but a sideways glance. He looked back at Sasuke. You hear something? Sounded like the breeze just picked up in here for a second, Naruto said. Sasuke shrugged. Hey, don't ignore me, you red bastard. The same moon, Naruto decided to label him. Bill number 1 snapped as he grabbed Naruto by the collar of his jacket. Guy whose name I don't know, 2 things. First, shut up. You're disrupting my conversation with my frenemy, Naruto said. He glanced down at the hand grabbing him and then back at the nameless boy. 2. If you don't want to get wrecked, you'll let go right now. What did you say? The boy said, his face red as his friends held him back. Naruto, you know the rules. Sakura interjected. You mean that most obelisk blues need to learn to zip it? Naruto asked. Ouch. That hurt my feelings. Sasuke deadpanned. I said most, but you don't have any, so don't try to pull that on me. Naruto snapped. Ken, calm down, Zane said in his usual smooth-toned voice. The elder student looked at the lone slifer of the group with a hint of approval and amusement. Naruto could take you down easily. But, Zane, hey, until I get at least 30 feet away from the area, Leave Zane's butt out of this bill number 1, Naruto said. He brushed off the older boy's hand with a single bat and then looked at Zane. Thanks, Truesdale. Zane nodded. Hey, my name is Ken, you turd. Ken glared at the Slifer student. That's what I said, Naruto said. Clyde, you messed it up again. Sakura whispered into his ear. Naruto looked confused. Seriously, I swear I got it right this time, he said. Naruto put a hand on his chin and took up a thoughtful pose. I mean, he's just so generic. He looks like he's part of the background. The third-year obelisk looked ready to blow his top. Quiet. Zane cut in before his friend tried to get his pride ripped to shreds. The Chancellor's beginning his speech. Good ol' neck beard. Naruto nodded. Naruto. Sakura bonked the blonde Slifer on the head. Her strike did what Sasuke's couldn't and made Naruto cringe. Show some respect. I say it out of endearment. God, what do you do in your spare time? Break cinder blocks with your fists. Naruto whimpered while Zane led his moons away. Poki Draco appeared at his side and pulled one of his bandages off, placing it on Naruto's head. Naruto chuckled when the attempt phased through him and patted the spirit on the head. Thanks, Poki, it's the thought that counts. He's talking to himself again, Sakura sighed. Sasuke hummed while he stared with narrowed eyes at the space that Naruto patted. He could have sworn he saw No, he was just imagining things. Crew. Poki whined at Sakura's inability to see him. Naruto chuckled lightly. Poki loved Sakura, claiming her head offered the best naps. The three friends walked into the auditorium and took seats along the sides, allowing them to stare at the freshmen. When the big-bellied Chancellor began his speech of encouragement and trading card endorsements, Naruto started to doze off. Were it not for a few jabs to his ribs courtesy of Sakura, he would have succeeded. And so, I look forward to all of you advancing your dueling education here at Duel Academy. Chancellor. Sponsored by Seto Kaiba, crowned king of douchedom. Naruto murmured while Poki made his equivalent of Snickers. Amen. Sasuke smirked in agreement. Sakura rolled her eyes at the two boys. Well, that was just as boring as it was the first time around, Naruto said. He was in the midst of walking back to the Slifer Red dorm to get ready for the feast. Sasuke and Sakura had both already head off for their own dorms, leaving Naruto alone. He was only alone if one didn't count Poki Draco. Crew. Poki growled as he trotted along beside Naruto. The blonde grinned down at him. Yeah, bud, I hear you. He nodded and his hands interlaced behind his head. If Sakura would have relented, we could have actually gotten some more sleep in during that thing. Hey, slacker. Naruto turned around and squinted his eyes at the obelisk blue storming up to him. The boy had a dual disc on his arm and a gleam in his eye. Do I know you? Naruto asked. The obelisk scowled and pointed a thumb at himself. It's me. The obelisk student's face began to turn red when Naruto squinted at him. He gnashed his teeth together. Ken. Oh, that's right, Ken, of course. Naruto nodded slowly. Ken's eyebrow twitched violently. You have no idea who I am, do you? He accused. Naruto scratched the back of his head. No, I do not, he said with a sheepish laugh. Are you serious? We just freaking met not 15 minutes ago. Ken snapped. He growled and then activated his dual disc. That's it. Me. You. Duel. Now. Triangles. You know I'm not one that complains over how people talks, but could you use actual sentences? We aren't animals, man, Naruto said. He held up his hands at his sides and shrugged. But hey, what kind of duelist would I be to turn down a requested duel? Naruto pulled out his standardized Duel Academy dual disc from under his jacket. Where did you get that? Ken asked after a minute. He could have sworn that there weren't any visible abnormalities when he pursued the Slifer, nor was there a sack or bag that could have contained the dual disc. So where did it come from? I never leave my room without it, Naruto chirped while Poki climbed up his back and sat on his shoulder, much in the manner of that rodent on the Capsule Monsters show that Industrial Illusions was trying to promote as the next big thing. Naruto didn't think it would ever catch on, and would probably go the way of that dungeon dice game, but Poki liked watching the show back at the Raw dorm and it allowed Naruto to pretend to do his homework for an hour without his spirit trying to help. Ken, oblivious to the dual spirit's presence, stared dumbly at the blonde. But where? All call heads. Naruto grinned as their dual discs synced up and a holographic coin flipped in the air. The coin descended and landed on the flat space between them, a giant golden eye staring up at the clouds. Naruto whooped. Awesome. I'll take the second turn. Wait. Ken fumbled, still trying to come to terms with what he saw. He didn't register his in Naruto's deck, letting out a ding as both their life point meters activated. Ken life points LP 4000 Naruto life points LP 4000 Come on, blue boy, Naruto said. He crossed his arms and stared down the obelisk blue student. Hurry up already, man. I'm want to smoke you before dinner's done cooking. I'll show you lame. I draw, Ken declared as he drew from his deck and looked at his cards. A grin spread across his face. Ha, big mistake, I'll start with this. I summon Marauding Captain in attack mode. Ken set down his card on his dual disc and a holographic monster appeared between the two teens. It was a grizzled knight with plated armor, a dramatic cape and two swords. A stern scowl was on the knight's face. Marauding Captain. Level 3, ATK, 1200, Def, 400. Once he's summoned to the field, I can summon another level 4 or lower level monster from my hand, Ken said. He held another card out and slapped it onto his dual disc. And I choose Armed Samurai, Ben K. The next hologram appeared at the Marauding Captain's side. He was riddled with weapons and clad in Eastern armor. Armed Samurai, Ben K. Level 4, ATK, 500, Def, 800 That's not all. Ken presented a spell card from his hand. Now I'll equip my Ben K with the Axe of Despair. It boosts Ben K with an additional 1000 attack points. A grotesque axe with a wooden hilt appeared in the already over-encumbered warrior's hand. The monster examined the axe and gave it a few swings before it grinned. Armed Samurai, Ben K, Level 4, ATK, 1500, Def, 800 But why should I stop there? Ken smirked and slid another magic card into his disc. I'll also equip him with my fusion sword Murasama blade. A traditional katana-like blade appeared in front of Ben K. The instant the warrior took hold of the blade's hilt, the guard flashed and expanded over Ben K's arm. Armed Samurai, Ben K, Level 4, ATK, 2300, Def, 800 I end my turn, slacker. Hope you can brace yourself, Ken said and crossed his arms haughtily. Oh, yeah, I'm shaking in my boots, Naruto said. He shook his head and drew his first card. He added the draw to his hand and thought over the contents. Giant Trunade, Flame Ruler, Dragon's Gunfire, Spiritual Fire Art, Kurenai, Familiar Possessed, Hida, and his first draw was Pot of Greed. Crew. Poki rumbled as he looked over the cards. Naruto laughed sheepishly and scratched his head with his free hand. Yeah, I know. Talk about a lucky draw. Naruto chuckled out. He continued to grin as he pulled his first choice. Well, Keith, you wanted me to brace myself. I offer you the same advice, cuz I activate Giant Trunade. The face depicted on the spell card manifested in front of Naruto, hovering over an enlarged version of its card, and grinned sinisterly at the opposing monsters. The air went from a calm breeze to a heavy rush, all focused on Ken's two monsters, but it affected Ben K the most due to the spells that weighed the warrior down. Armed Samurai, Ben K, Level 4, ATK, 500, Def, 800 Ken crossed his arms over his face and squinted through the winds, lowering his guard when they finally died down. He retrieved his spell cards and scoffed. Oh, no, my cards are back in my hand, whatever shall I do? Idiot, I'll just re-equip them on my next turn. Ken smirked. Rookie mistake, Slifer slacker. As expected. The mistake was showing me you had those cards to begin with, Naruto said with a grin as he held up his next card. The green border and insignia made the obelisk blue student grimace. I play the sinfully sweet Pot of Greed. A sickly green pot with a twisted smile on its front appeared in front of Naruto as he drew two more cards. Naruto looked at his drawn cards for a minute and then began to laugh. It wasn't malicious or sinister, crazed or insane, but oddly very joyful and humorous. The sound of it made Ken scowl. What's so funny? He demanded of the younger student. Naruto settled down, his smile still in place as he filtered his cards into his hand. All in good time, Kyle. All in good time, he said. He pulled another card out. But since I don't have any time to waste, I'll just get on with it and summon my main man, Flame Ruler. A dark-skinned, heavily built and well-defined man with wild blue appeared in front of Naruto via pillar of fire. Markings lined the Flame Ruler's left side and his eyes were emissive orbs of light. A simple red cloak and blue slacks was all that the monster wore. Flame Ruler. Level 4, ATK, 1500, def, 1600 hash. So what? Even if your monster has more attack points than mine, I still have my equip cards and more surprises in store, Ken said with a scowl. Naruto tutted and wagged a finger at the older boy. You need to learn a little thing called patience, Claudia, he said. That's a girl's name, Ken snapped. I don't judge, Naruto said with a shrug. He crossed his arms. Flame ruler, teach this guy a lesson and turn that wannabe Ben K into barbecue. Flame ruler's hands ignited with fire and he launched himself forward. The fiery mystic let out a battle cry as he delivered a flying left hook to Ben K, only for the marauding captain to dive in and take the hit. The knightly warrior type was destroyed by the attack and scattered into fragments. Ken winced from the mild jolt his dual disc gave him and took a firm step back. He grimaced and then scowled at the boy while his life points dropped. Ken LP. 4,300 equals 3,700. Naruto LP. 4,000. Huh, that's weird, Naruto said with a frown. Flame ruler, why didn't you attack the samurai? Because the marauding captain forces all monsters to attack him instead of any other warrior monster I have on the field, Ken said. He brushed off his shoulder and crossed his arms. Congratulations, you destroyed one of my monsters. Too bad I'm going to turn your life points into ash. My turn. Hey, Camila, I never said I was done yet. Naruto interjected with a grin. He held up another spell card and showed it off to the older boy. Remember when I used Pot of Greed a few seconds ago? Well, it gave me this lovely trinket. Tribute doll. Sorry in advance. Sorry for what? Ken asked. I was talking to Flame Ruler, Naruto said as he slid the spell card into his dual disc. Tribute doll allows me to sacrifice one monster on my field to special summon a level 7 monster from my hand. What? Ken's eyes bulged out of their sockets. He watched as a massive steel slab rose from a glow of light behind Flame Ruler. 4 pointed knives launched from the slab and wound around each of Flame Ruler's limbs. The pyro monster cried out as he was pulled back to the slab and pinned to it. Like I said, Flame Ruler, I'm sorry. Any other duel I'd let this go, but it's almost time for the feast, Naruto said as Flame Ruler was destroyed into a shower of pixels much like Ben K was moments earlier, only the pixels didn't shower away and evaporate. Instead, they remained hovering in front of the slab. Naruto looked solemn at the sacrifice, before his eyes blazed. He pulled a card from his hand and placed it onto his dual disc. His disc shone and Naruto's eyes reflected the sunlight, giving off the illusion of a bright sun in the sky. Rise up and conquer. Tyrant Dragon. The pixels held in place by the spell card burst into flames and expanded. A massive ball of fire filled the clearing until 2 massive wings emerged, and with it came the rest of an orange-scaled dragon. Fins framed the creature's head while 2 bone-white horns sprouted back from its skull. In the center of its forehead was a green gem. When it fully manifested, the dragon reared back onto its hind legs and roared. The earth-shaking sound announced its presence for all of Duel Academy Island to hear. Then, to Ken's surprise, it settled down onto its 4 limbs, rather than attack. Instead, the tyrant dragon settled for glaring at Ken. Oh, yeah, Naruto snapped his fingers as if he just remembered something. Monsters summoned with Tribute Doll can't attack on the turn they're summoned. If that's the case, why bother summoning it that way at all? Ken asked, cowed by the glare Tyrant Dragon had locked on him and his monster. It was almost as if the damn thing were alive and irritated at him. Tyrant Dragon would have come onto the field one way or another, Naruto said with a pat on the dragon's hind leg. He grinned up at the beast when it glanced back at him and then expelled 2 brief streams of fire from its snout, as if dismissing him. Naruto looked back at Ken. However, the feast starts soon, and since I'm at the glorified toolshed, I want to make sure I get something. Better to do this and wait a turn than risk you pulling something out of your and prolonging this duel. So, you're done? Ken asked hesitantly as he kept glancing back at Tyrant Dragon, who continued to glare at him. I'll set a face down first. Then yeah, Naruto said as he slid a final card into his dual disc. He grinned. Your move, Canada. Right. Ken shook his head and then drew his card. He looked over his hand and withheld a grimace. There was nothing he had that could deal with that dragon right now. He could stall for time and make the Slifer's other monster summons one-hit wonders once he boosted Ben K up. The trap was likely something to stop his monsters from changing battle positions, so he wouldn't bother with that. Besides, the life points he'd lose if Ben K was destroyed wouldn't amount to much anyway. Ken nodded to himself for his tactical plan and then glared at Naruto. Hope you're ready, slacker. First, I re-equip Axe of Despair and Fusion Sword Murasama Blade to Benkei. Ken said, and upon placing the two cards, the samurai's attack stats boosted back up. Armed Samurai. Benkei. Level 4, ATK 2300, Def 800 hash. I'll set a monster in defense mode and end my turn, Ken said. He crossed his arms as the back of a monster card appeared in front of him, horizontal and face down. Make your move, Slifer Slacker. Says the guy staring down a dragon, Naruto said under his breath as he drew his card. Tyrant snorted again, getting an odd look from Ken, and Poki Draco growled something when it saw Naruto's draw. The blonde cracked another grin. Yeah, I agree, buddy. This duel is as good as done. Big talk for a slacker. Ken spat. He smirked and gestured grandiosely to his monsters. I've got 2 monsters on the field, and while your dragon can take them out, it'll take more than one turn. Quote. Man, now I feel like I need to apologize to the bastard for losing that duel, Naruto said. He adjusted his cards and held up a spell card. On the card was a dragon that resembled Tyrant Dragon unleashing a ball of fire from its mouth. First, I'll activate Dragon's Gunfire. Tyrant Dragon lifted its head and built fire up in its maw. As the beginnings of flames flickered out between its teeth, Naruto explained what the card did. Dragon's Gunfire can only be activated when there's a dragon card on my side of the field. I can choose between 2 effects, one that destroys a monster with 800 defense points or less. He gave the sweating armored samurai a pointed look and Ken's features paled. Or, I could deal 800 points of direct damage to your life points. Tyrant, I'm sure you know which one I choose, but for Cleopatra's sake, bring down those life points. Tyrant Dragon reared its head back before it launched out a massive fireball at Ken. The obelisk blue student trembled where he stood as the attack approached. He crossed his arms and closed his eyes before the impact caused an explosion that kicked up some dust. Ken grunted and grimaced as his life points dropped. Ken LP. 3700, 800 equals 2900. Naruto LP. 4000. Ken's grimace remained on his face as he glared at Naruto. You wasted a prime card, loser. You could have seen what my set monster was. Ken jeered. Oh, Kyle, what you call a waste, I call a bombardment. Bad news for you is that I've only just begun. Naruto chuckled and bestowed a second spell card, this one depicting a large draconic foot stomping down on primitive armaments. I activate Stamping Destruction. The spell card's hologram activated next to Tyrant Dragon's hind leg. Tyrant Dragon stood from its lax position and its wings spread. A powerful flap lifted it from the ground and it ascended into the sky. You see, Stamping Destruction is like Dragon's Gunfire. It can only be used with a dragon on my side of the field, but instead of dealing damage outright, it does something a bit more spectacular. It allows me to target one spell or trap card on your side of the field. And if I succeed, you lose 500 life points, Naruto said. He let his hands rest on his hips and he looked up at the silhouette of Tyrant Dragon. Tyrant, get rid of that pesky axe. Tyrant Dragon released a roar as it descended like a rocket towards the armored samurai. Benkei stared up in horror at the approaching monster and, at the last second, he jumped out of the way of its impact. The warrior-type monster lost grip of his axe in the process, leaving it to be flattened and destroyed under Tyrant Dragon's claw. Armed Samurai. Benkei. Level 4, ATK. 1500. Def. 800 hash. Hey, look at that, I destroyed your axe. You know what that means, Naruto sang out with a grin. Ken grimaced and braced himself again as his life points dropped. Ken LP. 2900, 500 equals 2400. Naruto LP. 4000. Grr, even if you attack, I'll still have 1000 life points. Ken said. Naruto closed his eyes and nodded. You're right, even if I attacked I would have to suffer through another round against you. That's not happening, he said. Naruto grinned and held his hand out towards the trap card he set on his last turn. Good news for you and bad news for me, Tyrant Dragon's going to be leaving the field. Sorry about this big guy. I activate my trap card, Spiritual Fire Art, Kurenai. The trap card lifted and from it emerged in a circle of red light a red-headed girl dressed in revealing leathers with a white shirt and brown belt underneath an oversized cloak. In her hand was a burning staff. Always glad to see ya, Hida. Naruto greeted the hologram. The red-eyed girl grinned at him before she slashed her staff through the air and faced Ken with a look of fierce determination on her face. Quote. I think I just found one of my new favorite spellcasters, Ken said as his face turned red. Naruto's grin twisted into a grimace while Hita's eyes became two blazing fireballs. For the sake of my sanity, I'm going to pretend you didn't just say that, Naruto said. He shook his head to rid himself of the unwanted images and grinned once more at Ken. Now that my trap card has been activated, I choose one fire-type monster on my side of the field and sacrifice it to deal direct damage to your life points. Time to go out with a bang, tyrant. Hita spun her staff and slammed the end into the ground, her eyes shut in intense concentration as a red circle embroidered with Egyptian text and alchemic symbols appeared in front of her. The same rune mirrored itself above and beneath Tyrant Dragon, who gave one last roar before the rune's rose descended on it, changing the mighty drake into a creature of fire. Naruto pointed at Ken and lost his smile, a grave look of seriousness in his gaze. Next time you want to duel, pick a day that doesn't risk me missing out on a good meal, Karen. He barked at the obelisk student before he twisted his hand and pointed his thumb down. Game over, Ken. Finish it, Hita. Spiritual fire art, Kurenai. Hita's eyes snapped open and she took hold of her staff in both hands. She pulled the blazing stick back to her side and then thrust it at the magical rune in front of her. The rune shown in the blazing inferno formerly known as Tyrant Dragon launched at the obelisk blue student. Ken let out a wail of disbelief as the fiery attack engulfed him and his life points depleted to 0. Ken LP. 0. Naruto LP. 4000. When the dual discs deactivated, Ken slumped to his hands and knees, wide-eyed and shocked. Naruto cleaned his cards from his disc and set them back into his deck. He turned and prepared to walk away, but stopped at the obelisk's next cry. You cheated, Ken accused. He glared daggers at the blonde Slifer's back. You stacked your deck. There's no way you got a hand and 4 draws perfectly. I demand a rematch. Crew. Poki Draco growled and the hints of small embers broke through his mouth. Naruto caught him by the tail when the little drake tried to launch himself at the boy. The blonde wasn't sure if the dual spirit could do actual harm, but he wasn't about to try and risk it. Especially since that would only fan Ken's flames. I don't cheat, blue boy, Naruto said. He pulled Poki Draco back to his side, holding the struggling drake by his tail to keep him in place, and held his dual disc up. Kaiba Corp's best and brightest developed these dual discs to automatically shuffle our decks. You can't cheat, you'd have to be you loosely smart to be able to modify them. If it makes you feel better, I was demoted from raw yellow to slifer red because I didn't do so hot on my evaluation exam and lost my placement duel. If I hadn't lost my duel, I would have stayed in raw. So you're saying that was all luck? Ken scowled. He shot to his feet and cut his arm through the air. No way. No one is that lucky. Not even the king of games could draw a hand that good. Think what you want, Carter, Naruto said with a shrug. He turned away and resumed his walk towards his new dorm with his hands interlaced behind his head, and a growling Poki Draco seated on his shoulder. If you want to challenge the results, take it up with the Chancellor. Just be sure to tell him that you challenged me and lost. I'm sure that'll help him resolve the issue. Ken recoiled and scowled. If he went to someone higher up and voiced his worries, he'd appear to be both petty and a sore loser. No one would want to duel him and his duelist rank would drop faster than one could sacrifice their Karibo from their hand. Instead, the obelisk blue balled his hand into a fist and watched the boy walk away. His eyes narrowed and he ground his teeth. This isn't over, slacker. No one makes a fool of Kenneth von Schroeder, Ken said. He stalked away and pulled his personal cellular phone out. Next time we duel, your dragon's going to find his wings clipped. Then you'll crash and burn. Is this really all that we have for breakfast, Professor? Naruto asked. He looked down at the small tray of scrambled eggs that were unworthy of being in a hospital, reheated cooked ham from the feast the night before, an orange with a large bruise on the side and 2 slices of paper-thin toast. He looked back up at the professor. Seriously, I'm sorry, Mr. Uzumaki, but our dorm has limited funds. Be happy you get to eat these leftovers at all, Professor Lyman Banner said to him gently. He was a soft-spoken teacher who Naruto thought was utterly confusing at times, but amusing at others. He had small glasses resting on the end of his nose, which did little to help the man see since he was always squinting, and long dark hair tied back in a ponytail. The tall, thin man was dressed in a white shirt with a large collar, fitted, but relaxed slacks, and a loose tie. In his arms was the ever-present fat tabby cat, Pharaoh. Poki, I take back what I said to Clarion, Naruto said under his breath to his dual spirit as he walked away from the dorm head with his meager meal in hand. Poki nodded and crooned in agreement. He sat down next to a rotund boy with a large nose. The whiskered blonde grinned at him. Sup, chum, not much. Got 2 new roommates. They're loud and a bit annoying, the boy, Chumley, said with a snort as he continued to sketch in his notebook. Not like your roommates. Naruto took a minute to glance over at his roommates and winced when he saw them lift a piece of food, chew it and swallow in perfect synchronization. Richie and Ronnie Smith, like Obelisk Cravenwood's his name, were so bland they just melded with the background. Naruto hated thinking it, since they were nice guys and let him be for the most part, but it wasn't like he hung out with them anyway. They were third years and had their circle of friends that they grouped with. My roommates are moons, Chumley. Moons. At least you've got 2 asteroids or maybe even little planets to deal with, Naruto said. He sighed, slumped down in his seat and propped his head up with one hand while he fed himself with the other. I swear, the sooner the evaluations come, the better. No offense. None taken, just keep sneaking some of Professor Sarter's grilled cheese specials my way and we'll be good, Chumley said with a small smile. Naruto grinned a little and then pointed at the notebook with his fork. So, what's that you're drawing? He asked. Chumley flustered and pulled his notebook away, which made Naruto whine. Ah, come on, chum. Let me see. No way, Naruto. It's not any good, you'll just laugh at me, Chumley said with a scowl. He stuffed the rest of his breakfast sandwich into his mouth and finished it off. Once done, he rose from his seat and left the dining hall. I'm heading back to my dorm. I got some homework to look over for Fontaine's health class. Chumley. Come on, man, I'm sure it's not bad. Naruto called out to the rotund teen. He sighed and propped his head up again. Dang it, I hate this dorm. It's a sad place. How could it be that bad? It's got the coolest of the gods watching over it. A boisterous and cheerful voice interrupted Naruto's lamenting. The blonde looked up and first stared for a good moment at the living, breathing Karibo that he found. That was not natural hair, that wasn't even an afro. That had to be a Karibo on the kid's head. His thoughts were interrupted as the boy spoke again. Name's Jaden Yuki. I'm the next king of games. Naruto blinked. He shook his head and crossed his arms. I'm sorry, what was your question before? Why do you think the dorm sucks? It's so rad. Jaden grinned. Who talks like that? Never mind, don't answer that. To answer your question, the food sucks, Naruto said. He stabbed his fork into the pretend scrambled egg brick to demonstrate the food's mediocre standard to the freshmen. The rooms are crowded, and worst of all. He dropped his head into his hands and sobbed. There's no fresh ramen. Well, yeah, not having a big kitchen does kind of blow, but we can always go to the Academy Food Mart. They've got cup ramen, Jaden said with a grin. Stickman, get the initiation stick. Naruto growled while he glared at Jaden. Another third year whooped and rushed out of the dorm. He ran back in and gave a modified bat to the fuming blonde. Naruto rose up from his seat and took a few steps until he cornered Jaden. He then started to make a few practice swings, aiming at Jaden's head. Don't move, and I promise it'll only hurt a lot. Professor Banner. Jaden panicked. His frightened gaze darted around the room before it landed on the dorm head that was grooming his cat. A little help here. What's all the commotion about? Don't you kids have class soon? Professor Banner blinked when he saw the bat and said. Another initiation? I thought I abolished that last year. I mean really, Naruto. Are the nails absolutely necessary? I don't know. Naruto stopped and lowered his bat. He then turned to the third year that got the stick. Hey, Stickman, are the nails absolutely necessary? Pretty damn crucial, Naruto. Stickman nodded. Naruto slowly turned back to look at Professor Banner. Stickman says yes, he said. Professor Banner wasn't even fazed. No more initiation stick. Come on. Naruto and many other senior students groaned when Banner expertly snatched the bat without harming himself. The whiskered blonde frowned while Jaden sighed in relief. Get a paddle without nails and then you can have all the fun you want, Banner said as he walked back to his table and sat down with Pharaoh. And the dream lives on. Stickman cheered along with many other seniors. They ran off to find the approved initiation weapon. Naruto remained behind with an owlish Jaden. So, initiation? Jaden asked. Naruto looked at him and shrugged. It's a rite of passage. A few whacks here and there. Nothing too serious, he said. He grimaced and rubbed his lower back. Be thankful you didn't get the nails, newbie. At most you'll have an issue sitting down. Oh, well, that's odd. Jaden shuddered before he shook it off and then grinned. No matter. Everyone gets initiated, right? No big deal for the next king of games. You know, some may call that arrogance, Naruto said simply. He grinned and quickly pulled the younger teen into a headlock. I, however, recognize confidence when I see it. So what kind of cards do you use? We could always duel to find out, Jaden said with a grin. He looked at the clock and then grimaced. Or after class. You know, you're a pretty cool senior. What's your name? Naruto Uzumaki. Don't forget it, kid, or I'll have to burn it into your memory, Naruto said as he led the boy out of the dining area. I love the sight of humbling in the morning, Sasuke said with a smirk as he sat within the main obelisk blue dorm lounge, a cup of coffee in his hand. He was watching 3 freshmen run back and forth in their pajamas, cleaning the floor. The reason he did so? He caught them on their return from an unsanctioned and illegal duel. How did he know it was a duel? The 3 morons didn't know how to whisper. Sasuke sipped some of his coffee, smacked his lips and then leveled an intense glare on the 3. I can't see my face in the reflection yet. 20 more laps, you slackers. After being caught, the little leader of the idiot trio tried to duel him. Jazz Kingsley or something like that. Sasuke stopped caring what the boy's name was after he won the duel with ridiculous ease. He had seen the kid's type before and what the brat needed was a good sense of humility beaten into him. It did wonders for Sasuke whenever he lost against the idiot he called his best friend. I'll reflect. You. The younger teen growled between each lap. Was that sass? Sasuke arched a brow up. He sipped his coffee and then smirked. I think you earned 10 more laps. Sasuke, what are you doing? Zane asked as he walked up to the second year. He also had a cup of coffee in his hand. Sasuke let his smirk grow an inch wider. Morning entertainment, he said. Zane hummed and sat on the couch beside him. Both sipped their coffee in relative silence while they observed. Only the sounds of their sips and Sasuke's occasional barks broke the silence. It was a few minutes later that one of the stooges slipped and slid along the freshly cleaned floor. He slammed face first into a wall, and Sasuke burst into laughter. Zane, why are those 3 scrubbing the floor in their pajamas? A buxom blonde asked as she walked up to the seated boys. I'm sure you know, Sasuke said, cutting his eyes away from the comedy show to look at her. He'd seen better. At least from what they told me. Cheerleader. Zane closed his eyes and groaned when the blonde's brown eyes narrowed on Sasuke. She folded her arms under her bust. I'm sorry, I don't think we've met, she said with a bit of bite. Sasuke arched a brow, to show he didn't care what she thought of his assumption, and she continued. I'm Alexis Rhodes. Rhodes? She's not like. Zane cut off Sasuke. She's the sane one of the family. Oh, thank God. Sasuke sighed in relief as he introduced himself with a raise of his cup. Sasuke Uchiha, second year. Uchiha, oh, you're the other one that some of the older girls like to follow, Alexis said with a nod. Sasuke's brow twitched. She was like other women, it would seem, clinging to one small offense and holding it over him until he apologized. It would seem that they wouldn't be friends this morning. They don't follow. They stalk. Sasuke corrected her. He returned to watching the show and enjoying his coffee, since Rhodes wasn't going to be civil and forgive him for his mistake. Not that he would go asking for it. Speaking of stalking, it would seem that Naruto's made himself another enemy, Zane said. He shook his head. At the rate he's going, someone will be hiring a dual mercenary to get their petty revenge. Wait, was it that generic guy? Sasuke asked. The one you told not to challenge Naruto. His name is Ken, Zane said. He cracked a small smile. And he claims that Naruto cheated. Naruto. Cheat. Please. Sasuke scoffed. That idiot isn't smart enough to run a system check on his laptop, he'd never be able to hack the dual discs. The dope has an uncanny knack to draw gold. Except for your last duel, Zane said. He glanced at the nearest clock before he continued. That was quite the match. Yeah, it was, Sasuke said. He looked down at his mug and cracked a small smile. If I hadn't gotten lucky myself, I'd be the one in the red dorm. Hold on, you're talking about a slifer. That Jaden kid, right? Alexis asked. Sasuke glanced at her and then looked at Zane. The oldest of the 3 hummed. Jaden defeated Crowler's personal deck in his entrance exam duel, he explained to the confused Uchiha. I missed that. No wait, Naruto missed that. Where's the video? Sasuke asked, sitting upright. Zane shook his head. I'll show you after class. Speaking of, Alexis, yours starts in 10 minutes, he said. Alexis blinked, looked at the clock, and then grimaced. She prepared to leave, before stopping and looking back at Zane. How did you? I know everyone's schedule. I have to as the Duel Academy representative, Zane said. That's a bit eerie, Alexis said. Zane shrugged. Take it up with the chancellor. He said it was so that I could find a partner or opponent on a whim to keep myself straight, he said. Zane finished his coffee and stood. Before he left the area, he glanced over at his two juniors. If it eases your concerns, I only memorize the schedules of the ones I think are worth bothering for such things. Quote. Show off, Sasuke said as the older boy left the room. He looked at Alexis and arched a brow. You're going to be late if you keep staring at him admirably. What do you care? Alexis asked. Sasuke shrugged. I don't. I was just pointing it out, he said. She left without another word. Sasuke stood up and tossed his empty cup into a nearby reciprocal. He walked up to the idiot trio and clapped his hands. All right, slackers, you got class. Do us a favor and clean yourselves up. The freshmen stopped what they were doing and panted from their morning workout. See, come on, guys, panted out the spiky-haired leader whose name Sasuke didn't care about. He stood up and straightened his sweat-covered pajamas to recompose himself. Let's get out of here. His two friends nodded and followed after him, but not before the brat shot Sasuke one last dirty look. I can whoop you in another duel if it makes you feel better. Sasuke called out to him, but the boy hastened his pace and the three disappeared around a corner. The second-year student smirked and crossed his arms. Yeah, that's what I thought. Sasuke stretched his arms a little and began to head towards his room so he could get ready for class. I mean, I got nothing against the guy, but what purpose does alchemy have in dueling? Math and reading make sense, as does tactics, and even cooking. Naruto threw his arms up in the air. Even cooking makes more sense than alchemy. If you think about it, Naruto, cooking is a form of alchemy, Sakura said as she and Naruto sat down in the same row as Sasuke. Do I even want to know what he's complaining about now? Asked the obelisk blue member of their trio. Why is alchemy even taught here? What good does it do? Naruto asked as he leaned around Sakura to look at his rival. Sasuke groaned. Banner riled you up again? He asked. Naruto grumbled under his breath and Sasuke sighed. Geez, idiot, don't let him get to you or you'll never get back in raw yellow. Shut up, bastard, what do you know? Guys, Crowler's here. Save the debate for later, Sakura said as the effeminate man walked into the room. The man was tall and thin, but was unlike Professor Banner being that he was slightly pale. He had applied purple or a dark blue shade of lipstick to his mouth and he had platinum blonde hair cut into a bowl for his bangs and pulled the rest into a ponytail. His obelisk jacket was modified to have pink frills along his shoulders, cuffs and collar, but other than that it was pretty standard. Bonjour, my second-year students. I'm so happy to see you all punctual and present. Professor Crowler greeted with a cheerful smile. He clapped his hands together. Now today, I would like to show the core concept of a wind attribute deck. Now who to pick, aha. Madam Haruno, would you please come down here for a duel simulation? Oh, of course, Professor. Sakura nodded. She rose from her seat and walked down the lecture hall steps. At the center floor, the professor offered a dual disc and she thanked him before pulling it on and sliding her deck in while moving to the far end of the room. The professor podium folded into the wall offer more space while a simulator drone dropped down from a panel in the ceiling. Now, I have set the computer to run dual patterns similar to that of the regional champion My Valentine, Crowler informed the girl. Watch out for the herpes. A second year shouted from the top row. Who said that? Crowler whirled around, scowling deeply at his students. He received no answer and huffed. Fine, I will simply ask for a one-page essay on wind attribute cards on my desk tomorrow morning. Everyone let out a groan at this, some glaring around the crowd to find the offender. Naruto and Sasuke were both part of the crowd. They did not want to write a paper for Crowler. I'm all set, Professor, Sakura said with a smile. Excellent. Crowler smiled at one of his favored students and clasped his hands together. Please do your best, Madam Haruno. Give us a wonderful show. A holographic coin projected from the duel simulator's iris just as Sakura's dual disc activated. It tossed in the air and Sakura watched it flip. I call tails, she said. The coin landed with a blank red side up and Sakura grinned. Sakura LP 4000. Dual Simulator D. Sim. LP 4000. Alright, I'll start this off, she declared as she drew a card from her deck. She glanced at her hand and smirked a little. I'll summon a monster face down and place 2 cards face down. And I end my turn. A strong start. Professor Crowler nodded, adding his own personal commentary while a monster card and 2 others shimmered into existence in front of Sakura. The professor lifted his hand as he spoke. Though elementary students know this, I'll reiterate for those of you who need to be reminded, it is never wise to start a duel without setting anything on the field. If you can't manage a monster or trap, at least attempt to feint a defense. Move declaration. Draw, the mechanical voice declared as a card slid out the deck into its hand. Scanning. Move declaration. Summoning Sky Scout to the field in attack position. A male humanoid creature with dark brown wings that sprouted from his back appeared on the field. A red claw contraption on his right arm and dark leathers decorated his form. A red mask hid the scout's face. Sky Scout. Level 4, ATK, 1800, Def, 600 hash. Move declaration. Activation of field spell. Harpy's Hunting Ground, the duel simulator said. With this, all winged beasts gain an additional 200 attack and defense point. Also, if a Harpy Lady or Harpy Lady's sisters is summoned, 1 spell trap card on the field and destroy it. The classroom's floor changed into an open dirt field. Sakura clicked her tongue as she realized that she had to keep that particular event from occurring if she wanted to come out the victor of this match. The pink-haired girl's troubles grew slightly when the Sky Scout that faced her held his arms out and powered up like something out of a ridiculous cartoon the boys watched. Sky Scout. Level 4, ATK, 2000, Def, 800 hash. Wait, the activation of your field spell triggers one of my trap cards, Magic Drain. Sakura cut in. She gestured at the face down on her left and it rose up to reveal a glowing blue ghoulish figure in the midst of draining a humanoid dry. The ghoul looked up from the card and pulled itself out, sniffing the air. Sakura a small smirk. You're stuck with a choice, bot. Discard a spell card if you can or you lose your hunting grounds. Move declaration. Cyber shield discarded to prevent Harpy's Hunting Grounds destruction, the duel simulator announced. A risque metal unitard with spikes appeared on the field and was snatched up by the ghoul. The ghoul retreated to its trap card, which then. Man, that would have been handy if she'd gotten rid of that field spell, Naruto said. He looked at Sasuke, who grunted in agreement, and took note of his scowl. What's got your panties in a bunch? She's playing with the machine. Sasuke grumbled. He folded his arms over his chest and closed his eyes. Wake me up when the duel's over. Wow. Real supportive, Sasuke, Naruto said. He chuckled at the middle finger sent his way and returned his attention to the duel when the simulator spoke up again. Move declaration. Sky Scout will now attack your face down, the duel simulator said. The second-year student kept her composure as the scout flew at her and swung his right arm into her face down card was destroyed. The card reconfigured with its image visible to reveal a winged wreath with a glowing orb floating in the center of it. Thanks. By destroying my Nova Summoner I can summon a fairy-type monster from my deck with 15 attack or less, Sakura said with a grin. I choose Freya, Spirit of Victory, who I will summon in defense mode. A spirited, periwinkle-themed cheerleader appeared in a show of light. She bounced around, shaking her pom-poms in glee before she crouched onto one knee and shook her pom-poms at her side. Freya, Spirit of Victory, Level 1, ATK, 100, Def, 100 hash. Oh my god, she's so goddamn cute. A student in the front row exclaimed. A small murmur of agreement rippled through the class from a few other students. Crowler sighed and pointed at the boy. You owe me 3 additional pages of homework about the reasoning behind human aesthetic application to monster cards, Monsieur Dawson. Ah, damn it. Make it 4 pages, Crowler said with a sigh. He looked at Sakura. Apologies, Madam Haruno. You may continue. Thank you, Professor. My turn. I draw. First, I'll use special summon my majestic mech, Oka thanks to its special ability, Sakura said as she set the monster onto her dual disc. In a flash of light, the mechanical white and red creature emerged. Its head floated up and down, held in place by an unseen force. Sakura smiled at the fairy and then sighed. Sadly, my Oka isn't going to stay on the field for long. Because I sacrifice him to summon my Air Knight Parsath. Oka's body expanded into a burst of light as the armored centaur appeared in its place. Her feathered armor gave her regal and holy appearance. She drew the large sword from her side and let out a ha when she brandished it towards Sky Scout. Air Knight Parsath. Level 5, ATK, 1900, Def, 1400 hash. Thanks to Freya's ability, Parsath's attack and defense is raised by 400 points, Sakura said. Freya shook her pom-poms and a light descended from above onto the Air Knight. Air Knight gained a gentle smile and nodded gratefully at Freya, who beamed a smile back at her. Air Knight Parsath. Level 5, ATK, 2300, Def, 1800 hash. Now, Air Knight Parsath, bring down Sky Scout. Cha! Sakura ordered with an enthusiastic punch in the air. Air Knight Parsath brandished her sword and charged forward. She let out a battle cry and swung the blade, slicing through the stilled Sky Scout. The avian-human hybrid staggered back a few steps before he exploded into a shower of pixelated fragments. D. Sim. LP. 4,300 equals 3,700. Sakura LP. 4,000. Now thanks to my Air Knight's ability, anytime she causes you damage, I can draw one card. Sakura informed her audience and her opponent. She looked at her hand. Nobleman Crossout, Marshmallow, and Soul of Purity and Light. There wasn't much more she could do now, so Sakura looked up and crossed her arms. I end my turn. Your move. Brava. Brava. A good use of a turn. Crowler praised with a smile. He turned to address the class. Take note of her initial move this turn, a special summon prior to the normal summon. Quite the inverse of most things you see. A great way to knock your opponent off guard. Move declaration. Draw. The duel simulator intoned. Move declaration. Summoning Cyber Harpy Lady in attack position. A buxom humanoid creature with artificial winged and taloned limbs appeared on the field. She brandished a whip and cracked it, which caused it to become covered in electricity. The monster's curves got a wolf whistle from somewhere in the room, which made her scowl and glare out at the students. Cyber Harpy Lady. Level 4, ATK, 1800, Def, 1300 hash. Move declaration. Field spell effect activates. Cyber Harpy Lady. Level 4, ATK, 2000, Def, 1500 hash. Move declaration. Activating Harpy's hunting ground to destroy opponent's face-down card, the duel simulator ordered. Cyber Harpy Lady looked at the face-down card and flew at it with malicious intent. Sorry, but I'd rather use it than lose it. Sakura declared. The card rose up when Sakura gestured to it. You look like you could use a tan, Sparky. Here's a solar ray. For each light attribute monster face up on my field, you lose 600 life points. Thanks to my Air Knight and Freya, you take 1200 points of damage. The trap card lifted on the field. Both of Sakura's monsters started to glow brightly, the released light becoming a beam and fired at the duel simulator. The machine crackled and fizzed as its life points dropped. D. Sim. LP. 3700-1200 equals 2500. Sakura LP. 4000. Calculating. Move declaration. Activating. Spell card. Elegant Egotist. Move declaration. Summoning Harpy Lady number 1 to the field. Special effect activates. All wind attribute monsters gain an additional 300 attack and defense. Sakura clicked her tongue as the Cyber Harpy Lady and her alternate counterpart had a small veil of wind swirling around them. Cyber Harpy Lady. Level 4, ATK, 2300, Def, 1800 hash. Harpy Lady number 1. Level 4, ATK, 1800, Def, 1700 hash. Move declaration. Spell card activate. Cyber Shield. Equip Cyber Shield to Cyber Harpy Lady. Cyber Harpy Lady looked down at herself as the spiked armor appeared on her form in a flash of light. She turned her body to examine how the armor fitted to her curves and smiled. A soft cackle escaped her lips as her attack power rose. Cyber Harpy Lady. Level 4, ATK, 2800, Def, 1800 hash. How vulgar. Sakura scowled in disgust at the sight of the lewd armor. Her eye twitched when the harpy smirked at her and began to make suggestive poses. Sakura bristled and she glared at Professor Crowler. Professor. I wasn't the designer of the cards, Madam Haruno. Crowler defended himself with his hands raised in front of him. He turned and glared at the harpy, who winked at him. Crowler recoiled and coughed into his fist. Just get on with it. Move declaration. Cyber Harpy Lady attacks Airknight Parsath, said the duel simulator. Cyber Harpy Lady cracked her whip to ignite it. She launched herself at the centaur and reared her weapon back. With a shrill shriek, the whip was flung forward and cut through Airknight Parsath, causing the fairy to explode into particles. Sakura shielded her face from the attack's result and grimaced as her life points dropped. Sim. LP. 2500. Sakura LP. 4500 equals 3500. Move declaration. Harpy Lady number 1 attacks Freya, Spirit of Victory, the duel simulator said. Harpy Lady number 1 leapt forward at the cheerleader. Freya's eyes widened in horror and she crossed her arms in front of her. The makeshift defense did little as the winged beast destroyed the fairy in a single slash of her talons. No! Dawson cried out in horror. He burst into sobs and slammed his fist on the desk. Damn you, you soulless machine. God damn you to hell. Make that 5 pages, Monsieur Dawson, Crowler said while he pinched the bridge of his nose and his class laughed at Dawson's pain. The professor sighed and folded his arms as he looked at the girl when the machine declared the end of its turn. The simulator has left you defenseless, Madam Haruno. Hopefully, you have something in mind to come back from this. It may have cleared my field, but I'm not done yet, Sakura said as she drew from her deck. She looked over her hand and rearranged it to her liking. I'll place a monster face down and then special summon my soul of purity and light by removing Nova and Freya from my graveyard. From a glowing circle in front of Sakura rose a transparent angel. Her body shimmered with a rainbow like one would see from a running hose. The angel smiled gently at her opponents, but hovered in front of Sakura with her wings spread slightly. Soul of Purity and Light. Level 6, ATK, 2000, Def, 1800 hash. Now, Soul of Purity and Light, destroy Harpy Lady number 1. Sakura ordered with a gesture at the winged beast. The angelic creature nodded and vanished from sight. Harpy Lady number 1 grew alarmed and looked around worriedly before going still and shrieking. Soul of Purity and Light reappeared on the field with her arm phased through the back of the harpy. Harpy Lady number 1 exploded into particles. It was still too good for her. Monsieur Dawson, you must really enjoy writing. Now you get to write 10 pages for me. Crowler chirped. The student in question became pale while the duel simulator's life points dropped and Soul of Purity and Light returned to Sakura's side of the field. Sim. LP. 2500, 200 equals 2300. Sakura LP. 3500. And before I end my turn, I'll put 1 card face down, Sakura said as she placed a card in her dual disc, which then manifested in front of her. She crossed her arms and gestured to the machine. Your turn. Move declaration. Draw. The duel simulator pulled a card from its deck. Another moved to one of the blank monster spaces. Move declaration. Summoning Harpy's pet baby dragon. A small red wyvern adorned with jewelry and a collar rose up from the field. The few other girls in the class cooed at the creature when it chirped and cawed while it rubbed its eyes. Naruto bit down on his lip and patted Poki, seated on his lap, on the head. He might have had a soft spot for the infant dragons. A secret soft spot, for those who didn't know him at least, that had existed ever since he first saw Joey Wheeler's baby dragon become Thousand Dragon. That duel was still one of his favorites to rewatch. Harpy's pet baby dragon. Level 4, ATK, 1200, Def, 600 hash. Not so fast, I active my face down card forced back, Sakura said as the trap card flipped up. She grinned. I've dueled with my friend long enough to know what a pain little dragons can be. Your little WYRM is going right back to your hand. A pellet shot out from the card and landed in front of the pet baby dragon. The little creature leaned forward to sniff the pellet when it exploded in the dragon's face. The little wyvern let out a squeaky roar as it vanished from the field. Move declaration. Cyber Harpy Lady attacks Soul of Purity and Light. Cyber Harpy Lady rushed forward again with her lit whip, but then fell from the air with a confused grimace on her face. Looks like you didn't do your homework, Sakura said. She grinned and pointed at the dumbfounded Cyber Harpy Lady. While Soul is face up during your attack phase, all of your creatures lose 300 attack points. Cyber Harpy Lady. Level 4, ATK, 2200, Def, 1500 hash. Unfortunately, it seems to still have enough power to destroy your monster, Crowler said with a dramatic sigh. He turned his head away from the explosion that came when Cyber Harpy Lady's whip took out Sakura's soul of purity and light. D. Sim. LP. 2300. Sakura LP. 3500, 200 equals 3300. Cyber Harpy Lady returned to the simulator's side of the field. She straightened up as her attack points returned to normal. Cyber Harpy Lady. Level 4. ATK. 2500. Def. 1800 hash. My turn. Draw. Sakura looked at the card she pulled and beamed a wide smile. Better pack a slicker for your motherboard, because I'm washing your advantage away. I activate Heavy Storm. Say goodbye to your skank attire and hunting ground. From the manifested spell card came a sudden storm, with winds that were strong enough to return the field to the classroom and remove the spiked armor from Cyber Harpy Lady. Cyber Harpy Lady. Level 4. ATK. 1800. Def. 1300 hash. While it may not be much, that still helps me out enough for now, Sakura said. I end my turn. Move Declaration. Draw. Move Declaration. Summoning Harpy's pet baby dragon, the duel simulator said. The successful summon this time around had the pet baby dragon shrieking a squeak roar at Sakura. Man, even so small they're still so prideful. Naruto chuckled as he rubbed Poki on the head. Poki growled and the blonde laughed. Yes, even you. Especially you. Harpy's pet baby dragon. Level 4. ATK. 1200. Def. 600 hash. Move Declaration. Harpy's pet baby dragon attacks face-down monster. Oh no. Sakura mock gasped and held a hand to her cheek. The false horror fell away to vicious grin. Sorry, but it looks like you rushed right in without thinking. Again. What a digital dummy. Naruto jeered from his seat. Monsieur Uzumaki, would you like more homework as well? I can assign a paper to explain the intricate rules and risks in attacking set monster cards, Crowler said. Naruto's mouth shut with an audible click. Crowler nodded and looked back at the duel, watching the fireball that the Harpies, pet baby dragon launch strike the set monster. The card was destroyed, but reassembled to reveal a white puff blob. Marshmallow. Level 3, ATK. 300. Def. 500 hash. Thanks to my favorite cream puff, you lose 1,000 life points for attacking him when he was face down. Sakura explained. The monster floated over to hover in front of the duel simulator and kissed it. D. Sim. LP. 2300, 1000 equals 1300. Sakura LP. 3300. Best part is, Marshmallow can't be destroyed in battle, so I'm safe for now. Move Declaration. 1 card set. Turn end. Alright, it's time to end this, Sakura said on her draw. She set the drawn card in her hand and pulled out another. I'm going to play the spell card Premature Burial. And with it, I'll bring back my Air Knight at the cost of some life points. D. Sim. LP. 1300. Sakura LP. 3300, 800 equals 2500. Air Knight Parsath clawed her way up from the ground and stood back in front of Sakura. Air Knight Parsath. Level 5, ATK. 1900. Def. 1400 hash. Parsath. Attack Harpy's pet baby dragon. Sakura ordered with a smile. The Air Knight drew her sword and charged forward at the Red Wyvern. Just before the Air Knight's attack could find any merit, the duel simulator's face-down card flipped up to reveal several cloaked individuals. Move Declaration. Trap card activated. Wabaku. All attacks neutralized this turn. The cloaked individuals clasped their hands together in prayer and a magical shield appeared in front of Harpy's baby dragon. TCH. Lucky break. Sakura frowned as her turn ended. Move Declaration. Draw. Summoning monster face down. Turn end. As you can see, class, despite Madame Haruno having such a powerful monster on the field, the simulator refused to change Pet Dragon or Cyber Harpy into defense mode due to Air Knight Parsath's pierce ability. Truly, it seems the simulator is in dire straits. Crowler said with a raised finger. Though it did prepare a face down in spite of this. And as we've seen from Madame Haruno's. My move, Sakura said with a draw. She pulled another spell from her hand and brandished it for the simulator to see. I'll activate the spell Nobleman's Crossout and use it to take care of that face-down monster. The monster revealed itself to be Harpy Lady number 3, a blue-haired variant of the Harpy family. The spell's Nobleman, who simply stepped forward and took hold of the harpy's arm before it escorted her politely into a portal, removed the blue-haired harpy from the field. Well, now, that had to be the most polite banishment I'd ever seen, Crowler said with a thoughtful hum. I may have to get a hold of one of those spells. Next, Sakura said, ignoring the professor's musing. I'll equip my Air Knight with the equip spell Cestus of Dagla, which boosts its attack by 500. Air Knight Parsath slid the sword back to her hip and the two-bladed weapons appeared in her hands. She made a few experimental punches before she took on a ready stance. Air Knight Parsath. Level 5, ATK, 2400, Def, 1400 hash. Now Air Knight, attack the pet dragon and get it off the field, cha. Sakura ordered with an enthusiastic punch. The elegant centaur charged forward and swung her bladed fist at the chained baby dragon. Harpy's pet baby dragon let out a cry as it was shattered into pixels. D. Sim. LP. 1300, 1200 equals 100. Sakura LP. 2500. Up in his seat, Naruto muffled a laugh when Poki turned around and burrowed into his stomach. He patted the little drake's back to reassure that it would be fine. But that's not all, Sakura said as her Air Knight returned to stand in front of her. Due to the Cestus effect, I gain life points equal to what you lost. D. Sim. LP. 100. Sakura LP. 2500 plus 1200 equals 3700. And with that, I'll end my turn. Move declaration. Draw. The simulator drew a card and then moved it to the field. Move declaration. Set one monster. Turn end. Draw. Sakura drew her card and set it in her hand. She folded her cards up and smirked. Nice game, computer, but I'm ending that feather hag here and now. Air Knight. Destroy Cyber Harpy Lady. Cyber Harpy Lady grew alarmed when the Air Knight charged at her with a gleam in her normally calm eyes. Air Knight wasn't very keen on being destroyed by the monster, and showed her disapproval as she stopped short and turned on her front hooves to buck a kick square into the harpy's gut. Cyber Harpy Lady didn't even get a chance to express her pain before she exploded into pixels. D. Sim. LP. 100 to 600 equals 0. Sakura LP. 3700. That's my win, Sakura sighed and put her hands on her hips. Wow, it got a little scary there for a minute. Congratulations, Madam Haruno, you defeated my Valentine's deck at medium difficulty. Crowler praised with a polite applause that soon rippled through the classroom while the simulator folded up and ducked back into the ceiling. You've got a very promising career ahead of you as a duelist. Thank you, Professor. Sakura bowed and went back to her seat. She grinned and accepted Naruto's high five for the win, but frowned at seeing Sasuke sleeping. She gave the dark-haired boy a playful punch to the arm that forced him out of his seat. Ow. Sasuke muttered from where he landed on the floor. Unseen by the others save Naruto, Poki snickered at the reaction, and the boy felt as though he was being mocked. Ah, now that was a nice shower, Naruto said as he walked back into his room clad in orange t-shirt and black running shorts. He looked around and hummed. Ricky and Ronnie were still out, which meant he was free to do whatever he pleased. Or he would have been, had his PDA not started to go off. Ah, man, where'd I put that thing? Naruto asked as he began to search the small room. Poki Draco appeared at his side before running over to the desk. It pulled the drawer open and then fell. Poki's squawk of pain made Naruto turn to him. He sighed and scooped his dual spirit up before he grabbed his PDA from the drawer. Thanks, bud, he whispered before answering the call. Yellow. Greatest duelist on the island speaking. Naruto, shut up. I have two of your freshmen here. Outside the girls' dorm. My dorm. Two of my freshmen. That kid that beat Professor Crowler's deck and Zane's little brother. Zane has a brother? Naruto asked and shared a look with his surprised dual spirit. Both were dumbfounded. Yes. In Slifer. Yes. And they went to your dorm at night to peep on girls, Naruto stroked his chin. Huh. I didn't know Jaden had it in him. Yuki was only here to duel my junior, Sakura said. After she and her friends caught Zane's brother. Look, I barely managed to keep Fontaine from coming to find out about them being here, but she won't be stay away for long, so you have to come do something about it. They can't even peep right. I'm going to have to show them how to do everything, aren't I? What? I mean, I'll have to scold them and give them both firm smacks upside the head for their naughty behavior, Naruto said with a nervous laugh. Just come pick them up, you dunderhead, or they'll get expelled. Naruto grimaced and he held the PDA as far as he could away from his ear. Fine. Fine. Just give me 2 minutes. He hung up on Sakura before she could continue ranting on him. Naruto scratched the back of his head and then shook it as he began to look around for some clothes to wear. The set of lungs on her and her freakish strength, what was I thinking crushing on her? Man, do I feel sorry for the guy she dates, though. It wasn't exactly a hop, skip, and a jump to get to the girls' dorm, let alone sneak past all the surveillance cameras. How Jaden and Zane's brother did it, Naruto could only imagine. He felt his respect for them grow in that regard, but still, they got him in trouble with Sakura by affiliation, so he'd show them what for. Naruto emerged from the woods just in time to see Jaden's dual disc deactivate. It was a nice duel, Alexis, we should do it again sometime. Jaden said, grinning like a hyped-up Karibo on coffee. Across from him were a blessed, blonde, 2 other obelisk beauties, and a mildly annoyed Sakura. She loved her sleep and hated when it was interrupted. Ah, man, did I miss the duel? Naruto asked as he got closer to the clearing. Kya, another one, a brunette exclaimed. Seriously, where do they keep coming from? The other girl asked aloud. Girls, relax, I called this one to pick these 2 idiots up. Sakura assured them as she crossed her arms. She glared at the sheepish blonde. You're late, Naruto. I sprinted here, woman. Naruto tossed his hands in the air. And had to be ninja. Do you know how hard that is? They upped the security. Your skills must be slipping, Sakura huffed. Naruto gawked at his friend while the girls snickered. A little teal-haired dwarf ran behind him and Jaden walked up to the blonde. Hey Naruto, you missed a sick duel, bro, Jaden said in his usual jovial tone. And I have much to scold you over, Naruto said as he wrapped his arms around both boys' necks. He pulled them into a huddle and hissed. The next time you go peeping, you let me know. BB, but I didn't, that's not what happened. I swear. The runt shook his head and struggled in the older boy's headlock. Liar. Naruto tightened his hold, causing the boy to gasp for air. Ah, what harm happened? All settled and I got to have an awesome duel. A win-win, I'd say. Jaden grinned. Naruto started cut off Jaden's air supply, too. Come on, chuckleheads. We'll have a second initiation for this. I hear Stickman found a banner-approved initiation stick, the whiskered blonde said. No. The boys cried as Naruto pulled them away. Sakura rolled her eyes at the dramatics and turned back to her juniors, who were whispering in a huddle while Alexis shook her head. What are you 2 talking about? She asked. The 2 juniors looked at her with smiles. Your boyfriend's pretty cute, the brunette said. Sakura blinked and then started to laugh. She wrapped her hands on her stomach and laughed long and hard. Oh ho ha hoo, boy, I needed that, Sakura said as she wiped a tear from her eye. She looked at the 2 confused girls. Listen, Jasmine, I know you and Cindy. It's Mindy, the other girl pouted. Sorry, Sakura said with an apologetic smile. She looked back at Jasmine. I know you and Mindy are all over the place going boy crazy, but me and Naruto are just friends. He's practically my brother at this point. You don't think he's cute? Jasmine asked. He's a 6 at most, Sakura said. But the whiskers. Mindy protested. Fine, a 7. Alexis chuckled and started to usher her 2 friends back inside with Sakura's help. Enough guy talk, girls. It's been lights out for a half hour now, she said. She smiled at the older student. Thanks for helping us out, Sakura. Don't worry about it, Alexis. And please, you 2, if you do want to pursue the dope, that's fine, but be careful, Sakura said as she walked the 3 freshmen in. Why? Mindy asked. She hugged herself. He's not abusive, is he? Naruto's probably the nicest guy on campus, as long as you don't insult his dorm, his name, or his ramen, Sakura said. She shivered. It's the other thing you need to worry about. Does he have an addiction? Jasmine asked, still fishing as they do. You smell that, Chumli? Naruto asked as he took a deep inhale. He and Chumli were hanging out in the latter's dorm room, both waiting for their exams to begin. First years had their exams the earliest and Jaden had rushed out not 5 minutes prior. He received a quick, good luck, from the chipper blonde before he was left in the dust. My dirty socks, Chumli asked while he half-heartedly went over his notes. He was fine in Slifer Red, his classes wouldn't change if he was promoted, so all he had to do was do well enough in his duel. Hence, his lackluster attitude towards studying. No, it's the scent of change, of renew, of promotion. Naruto began. He held his hand up and balled it into a fist. Today's the day I go back to raw yellow. Quote. You'll still swing by here, won't you? Chumlee asked. Wah, of course I will. Naruto grinned at the rotund teen. I gotta bring you your grilled cheese, right? And that is why you're my friend, Chumlee said with a chuckle. Ah, Chumlee, you big ol' softy. Just don't let those runts know. The koala-like boy chuckled and rubbed the back of his head. He sat back and crossed his arms. So, what's your biggest concern this time around? The same as it was the last 4 times. Who I'm dueling, Naruto said. He lost his carefree grin and crossed his arms. Last time I went up against Sasuke, but now that he's in the obelisk dorm, it's unlikely I'll get to face him again until the next go around. So, maybe some guy from Ra? Chumlee asked. Naruto shrugged. Our Crowler is still hellbent on me from annoying him from last year. Though he seems to hate Jaden after the kid whooped his main deck. Something I still can't find in the archives. Naruto growled.